Welcome aboard the pirate sloop Revenge in the Caribbean Sea during September of 1718. In the final years of the golden age of piracy, when pirate crews have refined their tactics through years of raiding merchant vessels, when the techniques for capturing prizes and evading naval pursuers have been honed to deadly efficiency. For the next few hours, we will explore how pirates actually rigged and prepared their ships for the midnight raids and desperate escapes that defined their profession, examining the specific modifications, techniques, and seamanship that allowed relatively small pirate crews to terrorize merchant shipping and evade the warships sent to hunt them. If you enjoy these detailed explorations of maritime history and the practical realities behind legendary activities, please like and subscribe to support our channel. Our story begins at dusk as the Revenge lies at anchor in a secluded cove on the north coast of Jamaica, hidden from passing ships by the headlands and by the dense tropical vegetation that comes down to the water's edge. The sloop is a vessel of approximately 80 tons burden, 70 feet long from stem to stern, carrying a crew of 75 men and mounting 12 guns, 8 6-pounders and 4 4-pounders. The Revenge is commanded by a pirate captain known as Black Tom Wentworth, an Englishman who turned to piracy after serving in the Royal Navy during the War of Spanish Succession, bringing with him the nautical expertise and tactical knowledge that make him a formidable pirate leader. He stands on the quarterdeck this evening, consulting with his quartermaster and sailing master about the night's planned operation. The merchantman we scouted yesterday should be passing north of the island sometime after midnight, Wentworth tells his officers. She's the Elizabeth of Bristol, carrying sugar and rum from Barbados to England. Heavily loaded, sitting low in the water, probably making 4 or 5 knots, will intercept her in the channel between here and the offshore quay. The quartermaster, a scarred Welshman named David Morgan, nods understanding. The moon rises late tonight, won't be up until near 2 in the morning. We'll have good darkness for the approach if we time it right. Exactly, Wentworth confirms, which is why we need to prepare the ship properly. I want to take her by surprise, before she can run or prepare defense. That means silent approach, invisible until we're alongside her. This is the essence of pirate tactics, using stealth and surprise to overcome opponents who might resist effectively if given warning. A merchant ship that detects approaching pirates has time to prepare weapons, to alter course to escape, to signal for help if other vessels are nearby. A ship taken by surprise often surrenders without resistance, knowing that fighting pirates typically means death for those who resist, while surrender might allow survival. Preparing the Revenge for a stealthy night approach requires specific modifications and procedures that the crew now begins implementing under the direction of the sailing master, a former merchant sailor named Thomas Barrow, who understands the technical aspects of ship handling better than anyone else aboard. The first priority is reducing the ship's visibility. Even on a dark night, a ship can be detected by various means: by the silhouette of masts and rigging against the sky, by the white of sails catching starlight or moonlight, by the phosphorescent wake that ships create as they move through tropical waters, by sounds of creaking rigging and the splash of bow cutting through waves. Barrow orders the crew to begin preparations. Strike the top-gallant masts, he calls. We'll sail tonight under topsails and jibs only, lower canvas that shows less silhouette. The top-gallant masts, the uppermost sections of the masts that carry the highest sails, are unstayed, designed to be lowered and struck when conditions require. On the Revenge, as on most sloops of this era, the top-gallant can be removed in minutes by loosening the rigging that holds it, then lowering it to the deck. Several crew members scramble aloft, moving with practiced ease up the ratlines, the rope ladders that provide access to the upper rigging. They reach the top-gallant yards, loosen the necessary lines, and begin lowering the uppermast sections. This work requires careful coordination to prevent the heavy wooden spars from swinging dangerously as they descend, but the crew has done this many times and executes the task efficiently. With the top-gallant masts struck, the Revenge's profile is significantly reduced. The ship will sail slightly slower without the highest sails, but the reduction in visibility is worth the trade-off for a stealth approach. Next, Barrow addresses the sails themselves. White canvas catches light and shows clearly even on dark nights. Some pirate ships solve this by using sails that have been dyed dark colors, gray, brown, even black, specifically for night operations. The Revenge doesn't have a full suit of dark sails, but she does have several jibs and staysails that have been treated with a mixture of tar and lampblack, creating dark grey canvas that is much less visible than white. "Break out the dark jibs," Barrow orders. "We'll use them for the approach instead of the regular head sails." The sailmaker and his assistants bring up the dark sails from the sail locker below decks. These sails are somewhat heavier than untreated canvas due to the tar coating, and they don't hold their shape quite as well, but they are far less visible at night, a critical advantage when stealth is paramount. While the sail changes are being made, other crew members address the issue of sound reduction. Ships make considerable noise during normal operations: the creaking of rigging under tension, the groaning of timbers working against each other, the slapping of loose lines against masts and spars, the splash and gurgle of water flowing past the hull. Some of these sounds cannot be eliminated. The hull moving through water will always make noise, and the rigging will always creak to some degree. But careful attention can minimize the noise significantly. A crew of men goes through the rigging systematically, checking every line, every block, pulley, every connection point. Lines that are loose enough to slap are taken up tight or padded where they contact masts. Blocks that squeak are greased with tallow or oil. The boom crutch, the support that holds the boom when the mainsail is not set, is wrapped with canvas to prevent it from knocking against its supports. The deck itself receives attention. Any loose equipment is secured or stowed below. Water barrels are wedged tight. The ship's boats, normally lashed on deck, are checked to ensure their lashings are tight and won't rattle. Even small items like buckets and tools are secured or moved below decks. The carpenter, a methodical Scotsman named Andrew Ross, inspects the hull and deck, listening for sounds that indicate loose planking or structural issues that might create noise. He carries wooden wedges and oakum, tarred fiber used for caulking, ready to silence any groans or creaks he identifies. "The strake here on the port side has been working a bit," he reports to Barrow, indicating a section of planking. "I'll drive a wedge to tighten it." Ross carefully inserts a wooden wedge into the gap between planks, tapping it gently with a mallet until the planking tightens and the noise stops. This kind of detailed attention to every potential sound source is what separates a well-prepared pirate ship from a sloppy one. The guns, 12 cannons mounted along the ship's sides, require special preparation for night operations. During normal sailing, the guns are secured tightly against the ship's sides, with their muzzles run out through the gun ports. But for silent approach, the guns must be positioned to minimize noise while remaining ready for immediate use if the attack is detected. The gunner, a former artilleryman named Richard Wade, oversees the preparation of each gun. The guns are run in, pulled back from the gun ports on their wheeled carriages, and secured with rope lashings that prevent them from moving and making noise. But the lashings are arranged so they can be cast off instantly, allowing the guns to be run out and fired quickly if needed. Each gun is loaded with round shot and prepared for firing. Powder charge in place, shot loaded, priming powder ready in the pan. But with the slow match, the smouldering rope used to ignite the powder, kept in water buckets rather than burning. This keeps the guns ready while preventing the glow of burning slow match from betraying the ship's position. "Have spare slow match ready to light on command," Wade instructs his gun crews. "If we need the guns suddenly, I want them firing within a minute, not fumbling around in the dark, trying to get everything ready." As these preparations continue, other crew members are addressing the issue of the ship's wake. When a ship moves through tropical waters at night, its passage often creates a trail of bioluminescent plankton, microscopic organisms that glow when disturbed by the ship's movement. This glowing wake can be visible for hundreds of yards, a telltale sign of a ship's presence and course. There is no way to completely eliminate this effect. It is a natural phenomenon that cannot be controlled. But the wake's visibility can be reduced by minimizing the turbulence the ship creates. This means sailing smoothly, avoiding sudden course changes or speed variations, keeping the ship's motion through the water as gentle and regular as possible. The helmsman for tonight's operation is an experienced sailor named John Williams, chosen because of his exceptional ability to steer smoothly and precisely. He stands at the tiller now, practicing the smooth movements that will characterize his steering during the approach. No jerky corrections, no excessive tiller motion, just gentle, precise adjustments that keep the ship on course while minimizing turbulence. "Remember," Barrow tells Williams, We want to glide toward her like a ghost. Smooth sailing, quiet approach, no sudden movements, until we're alongside and it's too late for her to escape. Williams nods his understanding. He has participated in many night raids and knows the importance of smooth helmsmanship to successful stealth. As dusk deepens into full darkness and the crew continues preparations, Captain Wentworth gathers his key officers and crew leaders to review the plan one final time. "We'll weigh anchor at 11 bells, he says, referring to 11:30 p.m. by the ship's watch system. That should put us in position to intercept the Elizabeth around 1 in the morning, while the night is still dark and before the moon rises. We'll approach from her stern quarter, using the dark sails to minimize visibility. Silent ship, no talking, no unnecessary movement, no lights anywhere. Once we're within hailing distance, we'll run up alongside and board immediately. The swivel guns will be trained on her deck to discourage resistance. We'll give her one chance to surrender peacefully. If she resists, we'll take her by force, but I prefer to avoid bloodshed if possible. A ship full of terrified but living merchants is easier to control than a ship full of vengeful wounded ones. This preference for avoiding bloodshed is not humanitarianism, but pragmatism. Pirates understand that their reputations of violence serves them. Merchant ships often surrender without fight because they know that pirates will kill those who resist. But actual violence is risky. Crew members can be injured or killed, prizes can be damaged, and excessive killing brings increased attention from naval authorities seeking to suppress piracy. After we've secured the prize, we'll take what we want from her cargo and let her go on her way, Wentworth continues. Unless her crew proves troublesome, or unless we decide the ship herself is worth taking, in which case we'll keep the vessel and add it to our fleet. The crew listens intently. Most of these men are experienced pirates who have participated in many raids, but even experienced pirates benefit from clear planning and coordination. The difference between a successful raid and a failed one often comes down to preparation and execution of a well-conceived plan. As the final hours before departure pass, the crew rests, checks equipment, and mentally prepares for a night's work. Some men sharpen weapons, cutlasses, boarding axes, daggers. Others check pistols and muskets, ensuring they are loaded and primed. Some simply sit quietly, conserving energy, contemplating the raid ahead. The Revenge at rest in the dark cove is barely visible, dark hull blending with the shadows of the shore, masts and rigging showing only as faint lines against the stars, no lights burning, no sounds but the gentle lap of water against the hull and the occasional creak of timbers. The ship is prepared for night operations, ready to slip silently out of the cove and across the dark water toward her unsuspecting prey. At 11 bells, 11:30 p.m., Captain Wentworth gives the order to prepare to weigh anchor. The crew moves to their positions in near-complete silence, communicating through hand signals and whispered commands, beginning the delicate process of getting the ship underway without creating noise that might carry across the water to alert anyone ashore or at sea. Let us follow the sailing master Thomas Barrow through this process, observing the specific techniques that allow a ship to be sailed silently in darkness, the skills required to navigate without lights, and the seamanship that makes pirate operations possible. The anchor must be raised without the usual clanking and splashing that characterize normal anchor operations. The capstan, the large vertical drum around which the anchor cable is wound, is positioned amidships, and normally its rotation would be accompanied by the rhythmic clanking of pawls, mechanical stops that prevent the capstan from spinning backward, and by the singing of sea shanties that coordinate the crew's efforts. But tonight, silence is essential. The poles have been wrapped in canvas to muffle their sound. The men turning the capstan work in silence, without shanties, coordinating through practiced rhythm rather than song. The anchor cable comes up slowly, carefully, water dripping from it, making unavoidable but minimal noise. As the anchor breaks free from the bottom, men on the foredeck grasp the floops and lift the heavy iron clear of the water, preventing the usual splash as it's raised to the cathead. The entire operation takes longer than it would normally, but it is accomplished with remarkable quietness. Simultaneously, other crew members are setting the dark jibs and the topsails that will provide propulsion. The sails are raised slowly to prevent the canvas from flogging, flapping loudly in the wind, which would create noise. As each sail is set, it is trimmed carefully to catch the light breeze without luffing or snapping. The wind tonight is from the east-southeast, perhaps 8 to 10 knots, ideal for the operation. Strong enough to provide good sailing, but not so strong that it creates excessive noise from wind in the rigging or from the ship's passage through water. The Revenge responds to the set sails, beginning to move slowly through the dark water of the cove toward the open sea. Barrow stands near the helmsman Williams, watching the ship's movement, feeling through the deck beneath his feet how she is responding to sail and rudder. Navigation in darkness without lights requires different techniques than daytime sailing. The usual visual references are largely absent, and the sailing master must rely on other senses and on intimate knowledge of the ship's characteristics. Steady as she goes, Barrow whispers to Williams, "Bring her to starboard 2 points once we clear the headland." Williams nods acknowledgement, making minute adjustments to the tiller. The ship glides through the water almost silently. The only sounds, the gentle whisper of water along the hull and the subtle creaking of rigging. Sounds that would be lost in the ambient noise of sea and wind to anyone more than a few hundred yards away. Steering in darkness is challenging. During daytime, a helmsman can use visual references, a distant landmark, the angle of the sails, the ship's wake, to maintain course. At night, these references are largely invisible. The helmsman must rely instead on the compass, a magnetic compass mounted near the helm, dimly visible by starlight, and on feeling the ship's movement, sensing through the tiller's pressure and the deck's motion whether the ship is maintaining her proper course. The compass itself presents a problem. In order to see the compass card in darkness, some light is necessary, but any light is potentially visible from a distance and could betray the ship's position. The Revenge solves this problem with a carefully shielded binnacle, the housing around the compass that normally holds a lamp for night navigation. Tonight, instead of a lamp, the binnacle contains a small piece of phosphorescent material, wood, that has been treated with a solution that makes it glow faintly in the dark. This material, known to sailors as foxfire, provides just enough illumination to read the compass without creating light visible from outside the ship. Williams watches the faint glow of the compass, making tiny corrections to keep the ship on the heading that Barrow has specified. East by north, 2 points starboard, he whispers, confirming the course. Barrow consults his own navigation tools, a small slate on which he has marked courses and distances, a chip log for measuring speed, though he won't deploy it tonight for fear of the noise, and his own accumulated knowledge of these waters built through years of sailing the Caribbean. The navigation plan for tonight is based on dead reckoning, calculating position by tracking course, speed, and time from a known starting point. Barrow knows the Revenge's position in the cove at the start. He knows the course they are sailing. He estimates their speed by the sound and feel of water moving past the hull. By combining these factors, he can calculate their approximate position at any time. But dead reckoning in darkness has significant uncertainty. Speed estimates can be wrong. Small course errors accumulate over time. Current and leeway, sideways drift caused by wind, affect the ship's actual track, but are difficult to measure precisely. A position calculated by dead reckoning might be off by a mile or more after an hour or two of sailing. This uncertainty is why Barrow also uses other navigation techniques. He watches the stars carefully, using their positions to check the ship's heading. The North Star provides a fixed reference point for north. Other constellations allow estimation of direction and time. Barrow is not a sophisticated celestial navigator who can calculate position from star sights, but he knows enough practical astronomy to use the stars as a general check on his dead reckoning. He also uses his knowledge of the local waters. The coast of Jamaica creates distinctive patterns of waves and currents. The depth of water changes in characteristic ways as you move offshore. The sound of surf on the reef provides information about distance from shore. All of these subtle clues help Barrow refine his estimate of the ship's position. As the Revenge clears the headland and enters open water, Barrow must navigate to the intercept point where he expects to find the Elizabeth. This requires calculating where the merchant ship will be at approximately 1 a.m., given her presumed course and speed, and then setting a course that will bring the Revenge to that location at that time. The calculations are done mentally, drawing on Barrow's years of experience. The Elizabeth is sailing from Barbados to England, which means she will follow the standard route north along the Leeward Islands, then northwest toward the Bahamas and the Florida Straits, where she can catch the Gulf Stream current that will help carry her across the Atlantic. Given her last known position yesterday and her probable speed of 4 or 5 knots, she should be passing through the channel north of Jamaica around 1 a.m. Barrow has chosen an intercept point in the narrowest part of the channel, where the Elizabeth will be forced to pass close to one of several small cays, limiting her room to maneuver. "Bring her to north-northwest," Barrow whispers to Williams. "We'll make for the lee of the cay, then wait in its shadow until we spot her passing." This is classic pirate tactics, using geography to create an ambush point where the prey ship has limited options for escape, where the pirate ship can remain concealed until the last moment. As the Revenge sails through the darkness, the crew remains silent and alert. Men are stationed aloft as lookouts, watching for the Elizabeth or for any other vessels that might be in the area. Others stand ready at the sheets and halyards, prepared to adjust sails quickly if needed. The gun crews wait beside their cannons, ready to cast off the lashings and run out the guns at a moment's notice. The night is dark, the moon has not yet risen, and while the stars provide some illumination, it is minimal. The sea around the ship is an undifferentiated darkness, with only the faint phosphorescent glow of disturbed plankton marking the ship's wake. The horizon is barely distinguishable from the sky, marked only by the faint line where stars end. Sailing in these conditions requires extraordinary skill and nerve. A miscalculation could run the ship onto a reef or into shallow water. An unexpected encounter with another vessel could lead to collision. The darkness conceals both opportunities and dangers in equal measure. But the darkness also provides the cover that makes the raid possible. A ship sailing silently with dark sails in conditions like these is nearly invisible, detectable only at very close range, impossible to track once it disappears into the night. After approximately 90 minutes of sailing, Barrow's calculations suggest they are approaching the intercept point. He signals to the lookouts aloft to watch particularly carefully for any sign of the Elizabeth. The faint glow of her wake, the pale rectangle of her sails catching starlight, the sound of her passage through water. "Bring her to the lee of the cay," Barrow whispers to Williams. "We'll heave to in its shadow and wait." The Revenge approaches the small island, barely more than a sandbar with some scrubby vegetation that will serve as their hiding place. Williams brings the ship smoothly around until her bow points into the wind, the sails beginning to luff gently. The crew bats the jib, sheeting it to the wrong side, which creates a balance where the jib pushes the bow away from the wind, while the mainsail pushes it toward the wind, resulting in the ship lying nearly stationary, drifting slowly downwind, but not making any significant forward progress. This is heaving to, a technique for stopping a ship without dropping anchor, useful when you want to maintain position, but remain ready to sail immediately. The Revenge now lies quietly in the shadow of the cay, waiting for her prey to appear. The wait is tense. The crew remains at their stations, silent and ready. Captain Wentworth stands on the quarterdeck, a telescope to his eye, despite the darkness, scanning the channel for any sign of the Elizabeth. Time passes slowly, 10 minutes, 15, 20. Then from the mainmast lookout, a low whistle, the prearranged signal that a sail has been spotted. Barrow looks where the lookout is pointing and sees it, a faint pale shape on the dark water, perhaps a mile away, moving slowly northwest through the channel. "That's her," Wentworth says quietly. "Prepare to intercept. Silent until we're alongside, then we'll show ourselves and demand her surrender." The crew moves into action with practiced efficiency. The Revenge falls off the wind, the sails filling, the ship accelerating smoothly. The course is set to intercept the Elizabeth at an angle, approaching from astern and to leeward, where the merchant ship's lookouts are least likely to detect the approach. The chase is beginning, the critical moment when stealth and seamanship will determine whether the raid succeeds or whether the Elizabeth escapes or prepares an effective defense. The Revenge accelerates smoothly, her dark sails catching the wind, the ship moving at perhaps 6 knots toward the intercept point, where her course will bring her alongside the Elizabeth. Every detail of the approach must be perfect. Any mistake could alert the merchant ship and give her time to escape or prepare resistance. Let us follow the gunner Richard Wade as he prepares for the critical moments of the interception, when the Revenge will reveal herself and overwhelm her prey before resistance can be organized. Wade stands near the starboard battery of guns, ready to direct their use if needed. The guns remain secured for now, silent and invisible behind the gun ports. but Wade has ensured that everything is ready for instant action. "Check your slow match," he whispers to the gun crews. "When I give the word, I want every gun ready to fire within 30 seconds, but no one lights anything until I command it." The gun crews nod understanding. Each crew has prepared their weapon meticulously. The gun is loaded with round shot, the powder charge is in place, the priming powder is measured and ready. All that remains is to light the slow match, run out the gun, and apply the match to the touch hole. As the Revenge closes with the Elizabeth, more details of the merchant ship become visible. She is a substantial vessel, perhaps 200 tons, considerably larger than the Revenge. Her sails show as pale rectangles against the dark sky, and she sits low in the water, clearly heavily laden with cargo. Captain Wentworth studies her through his telescope, noting details. "I see no guns run out. No sign they've detected us. Their watch seems to be keeping poor lookout, typical of merchant sailors, more concerned with wages than safety." This contempt for merchant ship vigilance is common among pirates, who know that merchant crews are often undermanned, poorly trained, and lackadaisical about security. A naval vessel would maintain much stricter watch standards, making surprise approach nearly impossible. But merchant ships, trying to maximize profits by minimizing crew size and wages, often have minimal nighttime lookouts and loose discipline. The Revenge continues to close, now perhaps 300 yards astern of the Elizabeth. The pirate ship is sailing slightly faster than her prey, gradually overtaking, angling to come up on the Elizabeth's starboard side, where she can be boarded most easily. "Prepare the grappling hooks," Wentworth orders quietly. "Get the boarding party ready." The quartermaster Morgan organizes the boarding party, approximately 40 men armed with cutlasses, pistols, boarding axes, and other weapons suited to close-quarters fighting. These men gather quietly on the starboard side, crouched below the rail, where they cannot be seen from the Elizabeth. Ready to swarm aboard the merchant vessel the moment the ships come together. Grappling hooks, iron hooks attached to lines, are positioned at intervals along the rail. When the ships are alongside each other, these hooks will be thrown to catch on the Elizabeth's rigging and rail, binding the two vessels together and preventing the merchant ship from pulling away before she can be boarded. The Revenge is now less than 200 yards behind the Elizabeth, closing rapidly. Wentworth makes a decision. It is time to prepare for the final approach. "Run out the guns," he orders, "but keep them silent until I give the word. And bring up the lanterns." Wade gives the signal, and the gun crews quickly cast off the lashings that have kept the cannon secured. They haul on the gun tackles, the ropes that control the gun's position, and the heavy iron weapons roll forward on their wheeled carriages until their muzzles protrude through the gun ports. The crews position themselves ready to fire, but still without lighting the slow match. The guns are run out and ready, but not yet burning with the telltale glow that would reveal their presence. Simultaneously, other crew members bring up lanterns that have been kept extinguished and hidden below decks. These lanterns will be lit and displayed at the critical moment, suddenly illuminating the Revenge and revealing her guns and armed crew to the Elizabeth's watch, creating shock and terror that will facilitate surrender. The ships are now perhaps 100 yards apart, with the Revenge angling to come alongside. On the Elizabeth, a lookout finally notices something, perhaps movement, perhaps the dark shape of the Revenge's hull, perhaps some sixth sense of danger. A shout carries across the water, "Sail ho, ship to starboard," but the warning comes too late. Before the Elizabeth can react, the Revenge surges forward in a final burst of speed, coming alongside the merchant vessel with remarkable precision. At Wentworth's command, the lanterns are lit and revealed, suddenly illuminating the pirate ship with flickering yellow light that shows the armed men, the run-out guns, the black flag being run up the mast. "Strike your colors and heave to," Wentworth shouts through a speaking trumpet, his voice carrying clearly across the narrow gap between the ships. "Resist, and we'll sink you. Surrender, and you'll be treated fairly." This is the critical moment. The Elizabeth's captain and crew must decide instantly whether to fight or surrender. The appearance of a heavily armed pirate ship alongside in the darkness, the display of superior force, the threat of immediate violence, all of this is designed to make surrender seem like the only rational choice. On the Elizabeth's deck, confusion reigns. Men are shouting, running to positions, trying to understand what is happening. The captain, a middle-aged merchant master named Thomas Reed, emerges from his cabin, assesses the situation in seconds, and makes his decision. "Hold your fire," he shouts to his crew. "Strike the colors. We surrender." The English ensign flying from the Elizabeth's stern is lowered, the universal signal of surrender. The merchant ship heaves to, her sails luffing, her headway arrested. She sits dead in the water, at the mercy of the pirates who have materialized out of the darkness. Wentworth allows himself a slight smile. The raid has succeeded perfectly. Surprise complete, surrender achieved without a shot fired, prize secured through superior seamanship and tactics. "Bring us alongside," he orders. Boarding party ready. Williams brings the Revenge alongside the Elizabeth with expert precision, the two hulls coming together with only a gentle bump. The grappling hooks are thrown immediately, catching on the Elizabeth's rails and rigging, binding the ships together. Boarding planks are run across the narrow gap between the hulls. The boarding party, led by Quartermaster Morgan, swarms across onto the Elizabeth's deck, weapons ready, shouting challenges and commands. The merchant crew offers no resistance. They are outnumbered, outarmed, and thoroughly intimidated by the sudden appearance of dozens of armed pirates. Within minutes, the Elizabeth is secured. Her crew is herded together on the foredeck under guard. Her captain is brought before Wentworth for questioning. The ship's papers, documents describing the cargo and its ownership, are seized for examination. Wade and several other pirates descend into the Elizabeth's hold to assess the cargo. They find what was described in the earlier scouting: hogsheads of sugar, barrels of rum, some bales of tobacco, various other goods bound for England. The cargo is valuable, easily worth several £1,000s in European markets. "Good haul," Wade reports to Wentworth. "We can transfer the rum easily enough, always fetch good prices. The sugar's too bulky to be worth moving unless we want to take the ship herself." Wentworth considers this. The Elizabeth is a sound vessel, potentially valuable as a prize. But taking her means dividing his crew to provide a prize crew to sail her, means dealing with her captured crew, means navigating the complicated process of selling or ransoming a captured ship. "We'll take the portable valuables and let her go," he decides. "Bring aboard all the rum, any coin or valuables from the captain's cabin, personal possessions from the crew if they have anything worth taking. We'll be done and away before dawn." This decision, to take only the most valuable and portable items rather than the ship herself, is typical pirate practice. Pirates prioritize quick operations that don't tie up resources or create complications. A ship full of sugar requires a port to sell it and a buyer willing to deal with pirates. Barrels of rum can be easily stored aboard the pirate ship and sold or consumed at leisure. The transfer of cargo begins immediately. The rum barrels are manhandled across the boarding planks from the Elizabeth's hold to the Revenge's deck, then lowered into the pirate ship's hold. It is heavy, difficult work, but the pirates labor willingly, knowing that the captured rum represents both profit and pleasure. As the transfer continues, Wentworth questions Captain Reed, attempting to gather intelligence that might lead to additional prizes. "What other ships are in these waters?" he asks. "What's the naval situation? Are there warships patrolling this area?" Reed, eager to cooperate in hopes of being released unharmed, provides what information he has. "I passed a Jamaica-bound convoy 3 days ago, perhaps 20 sail with a naval escort. There's a Royal Navy frigate, the Scarborough, based at Port Royal, but I heard she was laid up for repairs to her masts." This information is valuable. Knowing where naval vessels are allows pirates to avoid them. Knowing about merchant convoys might present opportunities for future raids, though attacking convoyed ships is much riskier than taking isolated vessels. After approximately 2 hours of work, the transfer is complete. 40 barrels of rum, plus various smaller items including the captain's personal silver, some passengers' valuables, and the ship's medicine chest, always valuable to pirates, who often lack medical supplies, have been moved to the Revenge. "Cast off the grapples," Wentworth orders. "Let her go." The boarding party returns to the Revenge. The grappling hooks are retrieved. The boarding planks are pulled back. The two ships separate, drifting apart on the gentle swells. Captain Reed and his crew watch the pirates depart, relieved to have survived the encounter with their lives and their ship, though considerably poorer for the loss of their cargo. They will continue to England, reporting the attack to authorities, adding to the intelligence about pirate activities that naval forces use to plan anti-piracy operations. But for now, in the darkness of this Caribbean night, the Revenge has successfully executed a perfectly planned raid, approaching in stealth, intercepting with precision, overwhelming with superior force and tactics, taking valuable prize, and escaping before any response can be organized. As the ships separate and the Revenge sets course for her hidden anchorage, Wentworth reflects on the operation's success. That, he tells his officers, is how it's supposed to work. Stealth, surprise, superior seamanship, no blood spilled, good prizes taken, crew and ship intact for the next raid. This is the reality of pirate operations at their most effective. Not the romantic adventures of legend, but carefully planned and executed maritime raids that combine nautical expertise, tactical knowledge, and piracy, and psychological warfare to achieve success against superior numbers and resources. While the raid on the Elizabeth has succeeded perfectly, not all pirate operations go according to plan. Pirates must also be prepared for situations requiring rapid escape from pursuing naval vessels, from stronger opponents, or from situations where the initial plan has failed. Let us now examine a different scenario aboard the Revenge, a situation just 2 days later, when the pirate sloop encounters an unexpected threat that requires all of her crew's seamanship and all of her specialized rigging to escape. It is late afternoon, and the Revenge is sailing north along the coast of Hispaniola, making leisurely progress with plans to raid shipping near the Tortuga Channel. The lookout suddenly calls down from the mainmast, "Sail ho! 3 points off the starboard bow." Captain Wentworth trains his telescope in the indicated direction and sees a vessel that makes his blood run cold. A Royal Navy frigate, probably 36 or 40 guns. Her size and profile unmistakable, even at a distance of perhaps 4 miles. Worse, she appears to be on an intercept course. Whether she has spotted the Revenge or whether the meeting is merely unfortunate coincidence is unclear, but it doesn't matter. If the frigate closes with the Revenge, the pirate sloop will be outgunned by a factor of 3 or 4 to 1, with no realistic chance of success in combat. "All hands," Wentworth roars. "Make sail, prepare for chase, we're running." The crew responds instantly, men racing to their stations, ready to execute the emergency escape procedures they have practiced many times. A pirate ship's survival often depends on its ability to outrun naval pursuers, and every pirate crew drills extensively in rapid sail setting and in the specialized techniques that maximize speed. The sailing master Barrow takes charge of the sail handling, shake out all reefs, set the topgallant, staysails, and stunsails as fast as you can get them rigged. The crew swarms into action. The topsails, which have been reefed, partially furled for easier handling, are shaken out to their full extent, increasing sail area and power. The topgallant mast, which was struck for the nighttime raid, has been reinstalled, and now the topgallant sail is set above the topsails, adding crucial square footage of canvas. Staysails, triangular sails set on the stays, the rigging that supports the mast from bow to stern, are broken out and hoisted. These sails fill the gaps between the masts, capturing wind that would otherwise be wasted, adding incremental speed. Most significantly, the studding sails, pronounced stun sails, are prepared. These are special sails that extend beyond the normal width of the ship, mounted on temporary booms that stick out from the yards. They are difficult and dangerous to set, especially in strong wind. But they dramatically increase sail area and can add half a knot or more to a ship's speed. Setting stun sails requires men to go aloft to the ends of the yards, the horizontal spars that support the sails, where they must work on narrow footrebs while extending the stunsail booms and rigging the necessary lines. It is hazardous work at the best of times, even more so when done in haste while the ship is sailing at maximum speed. But the crew executes the task with practiced efficiency. The stunsail booms are run out from the yardarms, extending perhaps 15 feet beyond the ship's normal breadth on each side. The stunsails themselves, long narrow rectangles of canvas, are hoisted and sheeted home, bellying out beyond the ship's sides like wings. With every possible scrap of canvas set, the Revenge heels over under the press of sail, her lee rail nearly touching the water, spray flying from her bow as she accelerates to her maximum speed. Barrow estimates they are making perhaps 9 knots, possibly more, an extraordinary speed for a vessel of this size, achieved through having every sail perfectly trimmed and by accepting a degree of heel and stress on the rigging that would be considered dangerous under normal circumstances. But the frigate is also making sail, and with her greater size and more numerous sails, she may be able to match or exceed the Revenge's speed. The chase is on, and the outcome is far from certain. "How does she bear?" Wentworth calls to the lookout. Holding station, sir, not gaining nor losing. This is both good news and bad. The Revenge is not being caught, which means they have a chance, but neither are they pulling away, which means the chase could continue for hours, testing both ships' endurance and seamanship. Wentworth must now employ every trick of seamanship and every advantage his ship possesses to escape. The Revenge has several advantages over the frigate. She is smaller and more maneuverable. She draws less water, allowing her to sail in shallower areas, and her crew knows these waters intimately, while the frigate's captain may not. Thomas, Wentworth says to Barrow, will make for the shoals off Cape Engano. Our draft allows us to pass through them, but a frigate of that size will have to go around. If we can reach the shoals with enough lead, we'll escape through them and be away before she can intercept on the other side. Barrow nods understanding. The plan is sound but requires precise navigation. The shoals off Cape Engano are a complex maze of shallow water, coral heads, and shifting sandbanks. A ship that knows the channel can thread through them, but a ship that doesn't risks grounding and destruction. I know the passage, Barrow confirms, but we'll need to arrive with at least a mile lead to have time to navigate the shoals safely. Then we need to gain that mile, Wentworth says grimly. What can we do to increase our speed? Barrow considers. With every sail already set, with the ship already heeled over and straining under the press of canvas, there are few conventional options left. But pirate sailors are nothing if not unconventional. We can lighten ship, he suggests. Throw overboard anything we don't absolutely need. Every 100 pounds we reduce makes us slightly faster. Wentworth makes the hard decision instantly. Do it. Jettison the guns. This is an extreme measure. The guns represent significant value. Each cannon is worth perhaps 50 pounds or more. The 12 guns together represent a substantial portion of the ship's armament and value. But they also represent considerable weight. Each 6-pounder with its carriage weighs perhaps 1,200 pounds, each 4-pounder perhaps 800 pounds. Together, the 12 guns weigh approximately 6 tons of deadweight that serves no purpose in a chase situation. You heard the captain. Barrow roars. Cast loose the guns, run them out, and tip them overboard. Move. The gun crews quickly release the lashings holding the cannons in place. The guns are run out through the gun ports on their wheeled carriages. Then, with multiple men on each gun, the heavy iron barrels are levered up and tipped over the gun port sills, falling into the sea with tremendous splashes. It is painful to watch so much value disappear into the water, but the effect on the ship's performance is immediate. Lighter by 6 tons, the Revenge rises slightly in the water, accelerates perceptibly, heels a bit less under the same press of sail. She's gaining half a point of speed, Barrow estimates, maybe 3/4 of a knot increase. Overboard with the spare anchors, Wentworth orders. And the iron ballast if we can get to it quickly. The spare anchors, heavy iron implements kept in reserve in case the working anchors are lost, go over the side. Ballast, iron pigs kept in the bilge to improve the ship's stability, is hauled up and jettisoned. Water casks that are less than half full are emptied and discarded. Every item that can be spared is thrown overboard in the desperate attempt to lighten the ship and increase speed. The crew works frantically, knowing that their lives depend on outrunning the frigate. If the naval vessel catches them, they will either be sunk in battle or captured and hanged as pirates. There is no mercy for sea raiders caught by naval forces. After perhaps 30 minutes of frantic jettisoning, the Revenge has been lightened by approximately 10 tons. The effect is noticeable. The ship sits higher in the water, responds more quickly to helm and sail adjustments, maintains slightly higher speed. How does she bear now? Wentworth calls to the lookout. Gaining, sir. Slowly, but gaining. Perhaps a 1/4 mile gained in the last half hour. This is progress, but not enough. At this rate, it will take hours to gain the mile lead they need to safely navigate the shoals. And hours of sailing at maximum speed with every sail set represents tremendous stress on the ship and crew. Wentworth must find additional advantages. He studies the wind and sea conditions, looking for opportunities to gain tactical advantage through superior seamanship. The wind is veering, he observes, shifting more to the east. If we alter course to make the most of the shift, we'll gain on any vessel that doesn't adjust as quickly. This is sailing at its highest level, constantly monitoring conditions, instantly adapting to changes, exploiting every small advantage. Wentworth orders a course change of just a few degrees, adjusting the ship's heading to optimize for the shifting wind. The frigate, perhaps slower to notice the shift or less aggressive in exploiting it, continues on her previous course for several minutes before adjusting. "She's falling astern," the lookout calls. The course change gained us perhaps 100 yards. These small advantages accumulate. Over the next hour, through constant attention to sail trim, through exploiting every wind shift and current change, through maintaining absolute focus on maximum performance, the Revenge gradually increases her lead. The gap opens from 4 miles to 4.5, then to 5. As the sun begins to set and darkness approaches, the Revenge is perhaps 1.5 miles ahead of the pursuing frigate. Not quite the 2-mile lead Wentworth wanted, but perhaps sufficient if they can reach the shoals before full darkness makes navigation impossible. There, Barrow points ahead. The cape and the entrance to the shoal channel lies just beyond. The race is now critical. They must reach the channel entrance, navigate through the shoals in fading light, and emerge on the other side before the frigate can intercept. It will be extremely close. As twilight deepens and the Revenge approaches the treacherous shoals off Cape Engano, the chase enters its most critical phase. The pirate sloop must navigate through shallow, dangerous waters in failing light while being pursued by a more powerful enemy. Any mistake could result in grounding, capture, or destruction. Thomas Barrow stands in the bow, studying the water ahead, watching for the subtle signs that indicate depth and hazards. This is navigation at its most demanding, threading through a maze of shallow water, coral heads, and sandbanks, using only visual observation and accumulated knowledge, with no room for error and no time for careful soundings. "I see the entrance," Barrow calls back to Wentworth. "The gap between the 2 coral heads, just as I remember it. Bring her 2 points to port. There, steady on that heading." The helmsman Williams responds instantly, bringing the ship onto the new course that will take her through the narrow entrance to the shoal passage. The gap is perhaps 200 yards wide, adequate in good conditions, but concerning when entering at near maximum speed in failing light. As the Revenge enters the shoals, Barrow's navigation becomes critical to survival. The water depth here varies from perhaps 30 feet in the channels to as little as 6 or 8 feet over the coral heads and sandbanks. The Revenge draws approximately 8 feet of water when fully loaded, less now after jettisoning so much weight, but the margin for error is minimal. Barrow reads the water constantly, using every visual clue to determine depth and identify hazards. Darker blue water indicates deeper channels, lighter colors, turquoise, green, indicate shallower water over sand or coral. The pattern of waves changes over shallow areas, creating distinctive ripples and breaking patterns. "Bring her starboard 3 points. Now, hard over." Williams responds immediately to Barrow's urgent command, swinging the tiller hard over. The Revenge heels sharply, turning to avoid a coral head that has appeared ahead, the shallow water over it showing as a patch of light green in the darkening sea. The ship passes the hazard with perhaps 20 feet to spare, close enough that crew members can see the coral beneath the clear water, can see fish swimming among the formations, can appreciate how close they came to disaster. "Steady. Bring her back to port. Follow this deeper channel." The navigation continues in this fashion, a constant series of course corrections, each based on Barrow's reading of the water, each made with only seconds to react. It is exhausting, nerve-wracking work, demanding total concentration and absolute confidence in one's judgment. Behind them, the frigate has reached the shoal entrance, but has wisely chosen not to follow. The frigate draws perhaps 13 or 14 feet of water, and would almost certainly ground if she attempted to navigate the shoals. Instead, she is forced to alter course to sail around the shoal area, adding many miles to her pursuit. But the Revenge is not yet safe. She must still complete the passage through the shoals without grounding, must emerge on the far side and escape into the darkness before the frigate can intercept her. The light continues to fade, making Barrow's navigation increasingly difficult. The subtle color changes that indicate depth become harder to see. The coral heads become shadows that could be dangerous shallows or could be merely tricks of the failing light. "Slow match ready," Wentworth calls to the remaining crew. "If we ground, I want fire arrows ready to launch at the frigate if she tries to close with us." This is a desperate backup plan. If the Revenge grounds, she will be helpless, and the frigate could potentially close to cannon range even without entering the shoals. Fire arrows, arrows with burning tar-soaked heads, might not do much damage, but could create distraction and possibly discourage close approach. But grounding is a serious risk now. Barrow's navigation is becoming more guesswork than observation in the gathering darkness. He must rely increasingly on memory of the channel from previous passages, on intuition about where the deep water lies, on luck. "This turn ahead," he calls back. "I remember a coral head to starboard of the channel. We must favor the port side, but not too far, or we'll hit the sandbank on that side." The Revenge approaches the turn, and Barrow holds his breath, hoping his memory is correct, hoping the coral head hasn't grown or shifted since his last passage through these waters months ago. The ship enters the turn, and for a moment it seems they have misjudged. There is a grinding sound from below, felt more than heard, a vibration that suggests the keel has touched something solid. "We've won it," someone shouts. But the touch is glancing, the ship's momentum carrying her forward, the keel scraping over whatever it touched, without getting firmly grounded. The sound stops, the ship continues moving, and Barrow realizes they have narrowly avoided disaster. "We grazed the coral," he calls back to Wentworth, his voice shaky with relief. "But we're through. Clear water ahead." Indeed, the Revenge has successfully navigated the most difficult section of the shoal passage. Ahead lies the exit channel, wider and deeper, less demanding of precise navigation. As full darkness falls, the pirate sloop emerges from the shoals into open water on the far side. "How does the frigate bear?" Wentworth calls to the lookout. "Can't see her in the darkness, sir. But if she's sailing around the shoals as we expect, she's at least 10 miles off now, maybe more." 10 miles in full darkness means the frigate has virtually no chance of reacquiring the Revenge. Without being able to see her prey, without knowing exactly where she emerged from the shoals, the naval vessel cannot effectively pursue. "We've done it," Wentworth says quietly. "Alter course to the northwest. We'll make for Tortuga. At this point, we've lost them." The Revenge sails into the darkness, her crew exhausted from hours of maximum effort, her hold lighter by many tons of jettisoned equipment, but alive and free. The escape has succeeded through a combination of superior seamanship, intimate knowledge of local waters, willingness to sacrifice equipment, and considerable luck. As the adrenaline fades and the immediate danger passes, the crew begins to relax slightly. Men who have been at their posts for hours take water breaks, some rotating to rest, while others maintain the necessary watches and sail handling. Wentworth gathers his officers to assess the situation. "We lost the guns, the spare anchors, a considerable amount of ballast and equipment. That's a significant cost. But we kept the ship and the crew," Barrow responds, "and we still have the rum we took from the Elizabeth, which will fetch good prices in Tortuga. Overall, we've come out ahead despite the encounter with the frigate." This calculation, balancing the costs and benefits of the past day's operations, is how pirate captains think. Ships can be rearmed, but a crew that survives to raid again is the essential resource, and keeping them alive and free is the ultimate measure of success. As the night wears on, and the Revenge continues northwest toward the pirate haven of Tortuga, the crew begins to recount the chase, telling and retelling the dramatic moments, celebrating the successful escape, already transforming the terrifying experience into stories that will be told in taverns and brothels. This is the other side of pirate operations, not the successful raids, but the desperate escapes, not the careful planning, but the improvised responses to unexpected threats, not the romance, but the reality of men risking everything in a profession that offers wealth or death, with little middle ground. Having examined both successful raids and desperate escapes, let us now consider the broader context of how pirates maintained their ships for these operations. The long-term preparations and specialized knowledge that allowed pirate vessels to outperform merchant ships and frequently escape naval pursuers. The Revenge has reached Tortuga, the pirate haven off the northern coast of Hispaniola, where she can safely anchor, rest her crew, trade her captured goods, and address the damage and deficiencies from the recent encounters. Tortuga in 1718 is a cosmopolitan pirate base, where ships from various nations and various degrees of legality come to trade, to repair, to recruit crew, and to enjoy the pleasures that the port's taverns and brothels provide. The anchorage holds perhaps a dozen vessels, ranging from small sloops to substantial ships, all flying various flags or no flags at all engaged in activities that range from legitimate privateering to outright piracy. The Revenge anchors in the harbour, and Captain Wentworth immediately begins planning for the refit that will restore his ship's fighting capability after the loss of guns and equipment during the escape. "We need to rearm," he tells his officers. 12 new guns, or at least as many as we can obtain. We need to replace the anchors, to restore the ballast, to assess any damage from that grounding in the shoals. The quartermaster Morgan is dispatched to negotiate with the various merchants and ship's chandlers who operate in Tortuga, seeking to purchase or trade for the necessary equipment. This is more complex than simply buying supplies in a legitimate port. Everything in Tortuga exists in a gray area between legal and illegal, and prices reflect the risks and the limited supply. Meanwhile, the carpenter Andrew Ross and his assistants conduct a thorough inspection of the hull, checking for damage from the grounding. They find that several planks in the keel area have been scored by the coral, creating grooves in the wood, but not penetrating through to create leaks. "We should careen the ship and make proper repairs," Ross advises. "The damage isn't immediately dangerous, but over time, water working into those grooves could weaken the planking." Careening, the process of deliberately beaching a ship and tipping her on her side to expose the hull for cleaning and repair, is a major undertaking that will occupy several days. But it is also essential maintenance that pirate ships must perform regularly to remain seaworthy and fast. "Find a suitable beach," Wentworth orders. "We'll careen as soon as we've unloaded the cargo and arranged for supplies." Over the next several days, the Revenge undergoes the careening process. The ship is unloaded of all portable equipment and supplies. She is maneuvered to a beach with suitable gradient and bottom conditions. At high tide, she is run up onto the beach as far as possible. Then, using a combination of tackles, rope and pulley systems attached to her masts and to trees or anchors ashore, she is pulled over onto her side, exposing half of her hull. With the hull exposed, Ross and his crew get to work. They scrape away the marine growth, barnacles, seaweed, shipworms that has accumulated on the underwater portion of the hull. This growth creates drag that reduces the ship's speed, and removing it can improve performance by half a knot or more. They also repair the damage from the grounding, cutting out the scored planks and replacing them with new wood, caulking the seams with oakum and tar to ensure watertightness. The work is hot, difficult, and tedious, but it is essential to maintaining the ship's seaworthiness. While the hull work proceeds, other crew members are addressing different maintenance needs. The rigging, the complex network of ropes that control the masts, yards, and sails, requires constant attention. Lines that have become worn or weakened are replaced. Blocks, pulleys that have developed problems are repaired or replaced. The masts and yards are inspected for cracks or weakness. The sailmaker, an older man named Peter Walsh, examines every sail, looking for damage that needs repair. He finds numerous small tears and worn areas that require patching, plus several sails that are so deteriorated they need to be replaced entirely. Walsh and his assistants spend days doing this work, sewing with heavy needles and thick thread, creating patches, reinforcing stress points. This maintenance work is constant and essential. Ships in the age of sail require enormous amounts of upkeep to remain functional. Left unmaintained, the rigging deteriorates, the hull becomes fouled, the sails tear, and the ship's performance degrades rapidly. Pirates face particular maintenance challenges because they cannot simply dock at a shipyard and pay for professional repairs. Instead, they must perform most maintenance themselves, using materials they can obtain through trade, capture, or improvisation. This requires that pirate crews include skilled tradesmen, carpenters, sailmakers, rope makers, caulkers, who can perform the necessary work. The Revenge is fortunate in having a crew with good skills representation. But some pirate ships, especially those that recruit primarily criminals and desperate men rather than experienced sailors, lack adequate skilled tradesmen and suffer from poor maintenance that eventually degrades their effectiveness. As the careening and maintenance work continues, Wentworth is addressing the rearmament challenge. Morgan has located 8 cannons available for purchase, a mixed lot including 4 6-pounders, 3 4-pounders, and 1 8-pounder. They are priced at £50 each, a substantial sum, but not unreasonable given the difficulty of obtaining guns in a pirate haven. Wentworth negotiates the price down slightly and arranges the purchase, paying partly in Spanish silver taken from previous prizes and partly in rum from the Elizabeth's cargo. The guns are brought aboard and mounted, not in exactly the same arrangement as before, but in a configuration that maximizes the firepower available. The ship is also resupplied with essential stores, gunpowder, shot, food provisions, water, rope, canvas, tar, and all the other materials that a ship consumes during operations. Some of these items are purchased, some are obtained through barter, some are obtained through methods that blur the line between trade and theft. After approximately 2 weeks in Tortuga, the Revenge is fully restored, hull cleaned and repaired, rigging renewed, sails patched and replaced, guns mounted, stores replenished. She is ready to return to sea and resume raiding operations. But the time in port has also served another purpose. It has allowed the crew to rest, to recover from the exhaustion and stress of the recent operations, to enjoy the pleasures of shore life, to spend their shares of the prize money in Tortuga's taverns and brothels. This balance between operational tempo and rest is important to maintaining crew morale and effectiveness. Pirates who are constantly at sea, constantly under stress, constantly in danger, become exhausted and demoralized. Periodic returns to safe ports where they can rest and enjoy themselves help maintain the psychological resilience required for their profession. As the Revenge prepares to sail from Tortuga, Wentworth reflects on the lessons of the recent operations. The successful raid on the Elizabeth, demonstrating perfect execution of night interception tactics. The desperate escape from the frigate, demonstrating the importance of seamanship and knowledge of local waters. The maintenance period, demonstrating the constant work required to keep a ship operational. Piracy isn't the romantic adventure that people imagine, he tells his officers as they prepare to weigh anchor. It's constant work, maintaining the ship, training the crew, planning operations, executing raids, escaping pursuers. We succeed because we're better sailors than most merchant crews, because we're more desperate than honest men, and because we're willing to take risks that others won't. This self-awareness is typical of successful pirate captains. They understand that their profession is fundamentally about seamanship and tactics, not about romantic adventure. The pirates who survive and prosper are those who master the maritime skills, who maintain their ships properly, who train their crews thoroughly, who plan operations carefully, and who execute with precision. As the Revenge sails out of Tortuga harbor and sets course for new hunting grounds, she exemplifies the reality of pirate operations, a well-maintained ship, expertly sailed, manned by skilled and desperate men, rigged and prepared for both stealthy raids and desperate escapes, operating at the margins of legality and survival. The techniques we have explored, the dark sails and silent approach, the careful navigation in darkness, the emergency escape procedures, the constant maintenance work. These are the practical realities behind the legendary reputation of pirate ships as ghostly raiders who appear from nowhere and vanish before pursuit can be organized. The golden age of piracy was built on these skills and techniques, refined over decades of practice, passed from experienced pirates to newcomers, creating a body of specialized knowledge that allowed relatively small crews on relatively small ships to terrorize the sea lanes and evade the naval forces sent to suppress them. By 1718, when our story takes place, this golden age is nearing its end. The naval powers are finally organizing effective anti-piracy campaigns, offering pardons to pirates who surrender and death to those who resist. Within a few years, most of the famous pirates will be dead or captured, their ships destroyed or taken, their techniques and knowledge scattered. But for now, in this moment, the Revenge sails free, her crew skilled and confident, her captain experienced and capable, her ship fast and well-maintained. She represents piracy at its most effective, not the disorganized brigandage of desperate criminals, but the calculated maritime raiding of skilled professionals who have mastered the specialized techniques required to succeed in one of history's most dangerous professions.
The rigging, the preparations, the tactics, the seamanship, all of these combine to create the pirate ship's capability to appear from darkness, strike with devastating effectiveness, and vanish before response can be organized.
The practical maritime skills that made piracy possible and that make the study of pirate operations relevant not just to romantic adventure, but to the serious history of naval warfare and maritime technology. As the sun sets on another day in the Caribbean, the Revenge becomes a dark silhouette against the twilight sky, her dark sails barely visible, her passage silent except for the whisper of water along her hull, ready once again to hunt in the darkness, to raid unsuspecting merchants, to escape pursuing warships, executing the timeless pirate tactics that have been refined through years of practice and that will continue until the last pirate ship is finally hunted down and the golden age ends forever.